Hey, this is William Tincup and Ryan Leary. You're listening to the Use Case Podcast. Matt Baxter with Wedge is our guest today. Matt and I have known each other for a long time, and Ryan
I've
is
known
wearing.
him too.
Yeah. Wow.
You're excluded from the friend group. You're not part of the friend group.
Clearly.
He's wearing a what? He's wearing a T-shirt. He's
Let me
wearing a
guess,
Wedge
you got a
T-shirt.
coffee mug, didn't you? You got a
I did.
Wedge mug.
I did not. I just got a T-shirt. But
Boom.
so Matt, do us a favor and introduce yourself. Introduce Wedge.
My name is Matt Baxter. I live in Michigan, from Ann Arbor, live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I own a company called Wedge. We get wedgy a lot. That's not what it is. It's Wedge HR. We are specifically a B2B software platform. We play in the video interview space. When everybody hears video interview, they think Zoom, FaceTime, Riverside, Teams, any of those. We are one-way video interviewing, or on-demand video interviewing, or what the word nobody can spell is asynchronous video interviewing. So we're a software platform that we sell into businesses that are doing some form of high volume hiring or some form of volume hiring, whether it's franchises, individual locations. We work with a wide range, but yeah, end of the day, we're a video interview platform designed to help make the whole hiring process more efficient.
You know what I loved about that is not only the asynchronous part, but you didn't mention Skype.
I don't even think he was alive when Skype was a thing.
No. When there was a period early, there was a period where Skype would have been on that list.
So for perspective, in a month from today, I turned 30, and Skype was the platform that in middle school, when you wanted to have a little video session with your girlfriend, that's what you used. That was a middle school tool, and then it phased. Then it phased out. Yep. And I always got a lot of anxiety when that came on because, it was always loud enough that everybody in the home could hear it. Yeah. So I knew I was going to get in trouble. It was perfect. Perfect.
What does that sound?
Wow. Nothing.
And we used to take the corded phone and just go walk around into a closet and shut the closet to talk. And he's talking about Skype middle school. Oh man. Funny story. Yesterday we have our weekly trivia night, because that's what we do in my lovely old age. We do trivia nights on Wednesday, and the woman sitting next to me, there was a question that came about 1995 or something like that, and she's like, "Oh, I was 5 years old when that movie came out." I'm like, I was graduated and started college that year.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow. That's bad. Yeah, I don't know what was worse. That was bad. There
was a period where I think for me it's high school graduation. When I graduated high schools, when I started interacting with men and women, doesn't really make a difference, and they would say their birthday, and it was after I graduated high school. That's the moment I'm like, oh, we're not going to be able to relate on some things. It's like my movie references are not your movie references.
Pop culture's different. Everything.
Pop culture's different. Yeah.
I stared at yesterday or 2 days ago. I was grabbing a drink with an investor, and I looked at one of the signs that says before this age you can't
right.
ID. And at 2003, now if you're born in 2003, you can legally drink, right? And I looked at that, and I'm like, okay, my age is coming. I got my first gray hair. It's here. I'm starting to age out. It sucks.
Oh man.
So when you say asynchronous, just for the audience to make sure that they understand, one way a hiring manager gets on and says, "This is what the job's all about. You'll be working with this team, etc." That's a one way, and then the a candidate can respond to that one way, right?
That's exactly right. So with our tool, a company sets up a series of questions, typically 3 to 5. You can do an intro video, 3 to 5 questions, and then an outro video. So the candidate is being presented, whether they're invited through their ATS or through Indeed or whatever it is. You're invited to do this. You do it on your phone or your desktop. Question pops up, or intro pops up. Hey, my name's Matt. Welcome to Wedge. Super excited to have you as a candidate, yada, yada, yada. And then the next question pops up. You answer. Usually it's tell me about yourself or whatever it may be. You can do retakes, no retakes. It's up to the company whether you want to allow that. And the videos end up being, probably 4 to 5 minutes, usually 1.5 to 2 minutes per question. So if it's 3 to 5 questions, you're right in that 5 to 6 minute range. We've had over 300,000 candidates go through the tool now, which is a sweet milestone, over 1.5 million minutes of recording. So there's been some decent volume, which has been pretty cool. Yeah, so it's
that's cool.
been fun to see that at some scale.
And who's the questions themselves on the recruiting hiring side? Are they the one that script those questions? Do you have like a library that they can go through? Because, again, everyone hates kind of a blank piece of paper or kind of a starting fresh or starting new. So I'm just wondering what that process is like.
Yeah, so we pre-populated, about 150 questions, all designed around behavioral-based interviewing. So emotional intelligence, open-ended type questions. Tell me about your last boss and what worked and what didn't work. Things like that, where it's open-ended. But then companies themselves can customize their own questions. I would say we're probably 80 to 90% of our clients customize their own, which is great. But we wanted to provide some for them in case they needed some ideas, or they can use them, themselves. So we have both for sure.
Tell us about the user of Wedge. What's that company look like? What's their demo? How many people they hiring?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're relatively industry agnostic. We just aren't helping companies with like a CFO or a CEO or an executive role. It would be we would be defined in the high volume use case. We have a rather large crypto organization that uses us to hire customer success reps in Bulgaria to make sure they can speak English. We have some fast food quick service restaurant chains that use us literally to replace the whole full interview. It's just if they do this, moving to the next step. We have quite a few YMCA gyms in the fitness world that would use this, from lifeguards to staff managers as well as fitness trainers. So we cover a wide range. We in the broader video interviewing category, we'd probably be in the SMB to mid market. We certainly do have some enterprise clients, but I would say for the most part we fall into the SMB mid market category. And again, it's pretty industry agnostic. We've had a wide range of different use cases, which has been awesome to see. Just kind of avoiding that executive type role.
We're in the workflow. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
So what I've always liked about Wedge and others that are out there is the simplicity of this model, right? So I was going to ask, because I've always been curious, why asynchronous over live interviewing, different game. Right, it's a whole different thing. What I've always liked about is the simplicity of this. You log in, do it on your own time, record, send, go to the next step. That's what I've always found that to be something that I really liked about what you guys are doing. So kudos to Bill.
Yeah, thank you. And what's interesting, and you guys are the experts in this space. I'd be curious if you're seeing this too. Majority of people we're talking to, one of their greatest issues right now is candidate ghosting. For people who don't know the industry term, somebody applies for a job and they don't show up for the interview, or they apply for the job and they don't show up for the Zoom. So one of the benefits to asynchronous is they are completing this on their own time. So you've removed the issue of ghosting altogether. If they don't do it, they don't do it. If they do it, they did it. And we have been able to, in most use cases, reduce candidate ghosting by 80 to 90%, because it shows that a candidate has done one simple step and they're much more likely to show up to that in-person interview or that Zoom call. I'm not trying to get rid of Zoom. I'm not trying to get rid of, live interviews. But what we're trying to do is make the time that you're spending synchronously or live with that person much more effective and much more likely to happen. And that's where the benefit of a tool like asynchronous comes up.
Where in the workflow are we? What's it connected to inside of kind of a tech stack, if you will?
Yeah, so we're connected and partnered with quite a few of the different applicant tracking systems out there. We love our partners with Applicant Pro, Jazz HR, Lever, Greenhouse, and more. So we basically can integrate with any solution out there. I would say probably 80% of our customers are using some form of our HRIS or an ATS. We also have some direct users who don't want it plugged in for whatever reason, or they just may not have an ATS altogether. So we certainly see both. We have found that the use case is usually better with an ATS, just because it's less of a headache, for the HR manager bopping around different tools. It can all live in one system, and we like that. We like partnering versus trying to be the end-all platform. We'd rather, partner it out quite a bit. And then typically in the workflow, it would be in one of two different use cases for the most part. Either it's right a part of the application. So we have some McDonald's who literally have a QR code, scan it, answer first name, last name, email, 3 questions by video through Wedge. And then that goes right to their store manager, and they say, yep, hire them. Yep, bring them in for the next interview, or nope, no chance. That's probably a third of our use case. The other, you know, 3/4 would fall into, or 2/3 would fall into a phone screen replacement. So candidate applied, reviewed their resume or looked at their application, say, yep, what's the next step? Typically, that would be scheduling a phone screen. Instead, they would invite a candidate to a wedge and then move them on to the next step. So usually replacing that preliminary interview or that sort of first phone screen, usually those are the two use cases that we see. Some exceptions, but that covers the vast majority.
Ryan? You're on mute, dude.
I was like, did I really stun him that much? Did I make him that nervous?
I'm not sure how I got on mute. I did not hit mute this time. I sounded so intelligent too.
I thought my response was okay, but apparently it stunned him.
No, go ahead.
I was asking such an intelligent question.
Well, ask it again. Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, the intelligent part left my brain, but
yeah, forget about it.
I'll just ask a question. So do you find that most clients are offering Wedge prior to a human reaching out to somebody or even reviewing their application? They submit the application, they immediately get a link, or they immediately get pushed over in the Wedge. Kind of like, I'm thinking like an appointment center. Like if you fill out something for, I don't know, whatever SaaS-based software that's out there, someone calls you, you think you're getting a consultation, or you think you're going through some questions, and they're just like, oh, no, I'm just qualifying you to get you to the appointment. I never go to the next step after that. I'm so pissed off that has happened. I just don't go. But I'm wondering, like, where are most of your clients saying, you've applied, that's good enough, go do this, and this is going to qualify you to even get to a human?
So I'll give an example of our own hiring right now. So we're hiring a customer success manager, and I think I looked yesterday. We had like 115 candidates apply. Probably 70, right around 70, actually did the wedge. So we didn't interact with them other than the invitation to complete a wedge until they did it. We reviewed it, and then out of those, call it 70 videos, we picked the 10 we wanted to interview. So you think about the value add. Obviously, I'm biased because it's my own product, but like the value add is, we went from 111 that we would have worked on scheduling 111 interviews, right? Instead of doing that, we had them do wedges. So we eliminated the 40 that just didn't do it at all. So that's time saved. Then out of 70, they all did it. We had a chance to watch. Rather than a 30-minute or an hour-long interview where probably half of them weren't going to show up, they completed this. And then now we got to pick the 10 that we want to dive deeper with and spend more time with. We were able to, because of some things somebody said, or a response to something, or locate, whatever it may be, we were able to whittle that, what would have been 70 phone screens, down to 10 that are all really high quality, phone screen or high quality interviews, right? And that allows us to, really spend time more effectively. So, long way of answering, it's typically the last touch point before a human interaction. The exception would be sometimes we would go hand in hand, or right before or right after an assessment. So depending upon the needs of the position, you might ask a candidate to complete an assessment. If they pass that, then invite them to do a wedge. Or if you like the wedge, you invite them to do an assessment and then an interview. Sometimes that happens. We're not competing with assessments at all. It's just where in the workflow we would partner with them.
Now or in the future, are customers going to want you to stack rank those with AI and other tools to be able to say, yeah, it's great that we got it down to those 40, but you used the word whittle, but that's still human beings still doing the whittling. I could in my head, I don't know how technology would work, but in my head, it'd be nice to then get the 3 candidates I should really, really spend time with.
Yeah, so there are some, I won't name names, there are some other players in our industry, specifically in our category, who have doubled down on the whole concept of predictive hiring based upon a video. And that's opened the door for some scrutiny, understandably. Great technology, brilliant minds building it together, but open some scrutiny. So what I've wanted to be cautious of is not telling the company, hire these people. But what I want to do is, like, first step. So as I mentioned, we have 300,000 videos, 1.5 million minutes of reporting. I want to start to run large language model reports paired against job descriptions, reports paired against hired, not hired data, and come back and say, hey, company XYZ, you had 13 candidates, and the ones that said you hired them, the ones that said 12 times versus the 13th time you did hire them or not. Things like that, where it's, hey, here's more that you would not have necessarily known about, or here's just more information about the candidate, not telling you to hire them, but here's a lot more that you should dive into. That's sort of the first step. And then obviously we want to start to get into, based upon trends of what you've hired, here's the next likely candidate to fit that role. That's where we certainly want to get there, but I want to be very cautious of, everybody and their sister talks about AI. I want to be very, very cautious about, I don't want to come and say, this is the person you need to hire. I want to come and say, here's more information that you probably might have missed at a quick glance to help you make better decisions. And I think we're from a technology standpoint, we're very close to that. And that's kind of our next phase of evolution, if you will.
And that will then allow you to go back into, like, as you said, previously interviewed
All that
or
data.
people who previously completed the wedge, right? And say, hey, you're posting for this job today, but you have these 7 people that went through maybe for a different position, but based on what we're seeing, they potentially meet the qualifications. Do you want to see them?
For sure. And that and one of the things that I'm and you're two brilliant minds, maybe we have a separate discussion about this, but one of the things I'm thinking about is, like, think about the value of retargeting candidates that applied but didn't get the job, right? So, like,
Right.
I have
silver medalist.
For sure. I have 70 candidates that applied for our position. We're going to hire one. So 69 candidates didn't get the job. What do we do with them and they're rock star candidates there, right? There are tons of great, talented people and there's also, and this is something that, like, I don't think people quite fully understand the value of the data. There's nothing more signaling than a candidate that is motivated to do a video interview that is in the job market. Right now, some of the holy grail is finding people who are actively looking for a job. Well, you don't always know that because you don't want to publicize it. You may be working in another position, whatever it may be. We now have real-time data of who's applying for a job, showing that they are interested in applying for another role or looking at something else. That is where there's a gold mine, and we haven't quite figured out what all we're going to do with that yet, but there's so much value sitting right there.
One of the things that, for folks that are listening, asynchronous, is you can standardize interviews. So what you ask one candidate, you can now ask all the candidates the exact same thing, which, again, I'm careful to say eliminates bias. I think it helps reduce bias. Ryan and I have done a bunch of recent podcasts on neurodiversity,
I was just
neurodivergent
going there.
talent, things like that. And so now it's like, okay, standardization is great up until the point where you have talent that it doesn't work for. And you're actually ruling people out because it is standard. It's not the way that they can consume data, et cetera, or whatever, play fair. You get questions all the time about bias, about video interviewing bias, right? So what's your latest take, or what's your take right now on when people ask you prospects? I know that you get asked this question every day. What's your bit?
Yeah, and I got to give credit to you, William, because obviously through the years you certainly helped with this quite a bit. So number one, the majority of bias in general is one-on-one reviewing of information, whether that's a resume, whether that's a phone screen, whether that's looking at a dinner menu. You are biased, one person looking at one piece of information. The moment you introduce a second set of eyes onto a piece of information, by nature, you have reduced bias in some degree, not necessarily eliminated it, but you have reduced it. One of the cool tools or the abilities of Wedge is the ability to share and, to your term, William, to collaborate with other people on the team. So William, let's say you're the CEO, Ryan, you're the CFO, and I'm the HR manager. If I have a candidate come in and I do a phone screen, the bias or lack thereof is only as good as me on that phone screen taking notes to send to you. But with a Wedge, you can literally send the same exact piece of information that all three of us are looking at. The benefit from a bias mitigation or reduction is that maybe people don't have time as companies to phone screen every single candidate with 3 or 4 people or 5 people on it, or interview that. But with a Wedge, you can take and share it and make for really nice collaboration very, very simply and effectively. And the other piece too is it's a system of record. You can revert back and say, I did or didn't hire this candidate based upon this response or whatever that looks like. And you're instantly able to reduce bias in some regards quite a bit. And that's something that we encourage companies, is the collaboration component is certainly a huge asset in this conversation versus a hindrance.
do they
Yeah.
get to put their notes, or do they get to grade people out and put their notes? So collaboratively, okay, again, in the scenario, we're 3 different positions in that company. Can I then say, yeah, this is 5 stars or whatever the grading system is, and here are my notes, why? And then Ryan looks at it and goes, yeah, it's actually 4 stars. And here are my reasons why. And then you look at that and go, yeah, 0 stars. And here are my reasons why. So like now we can have a conversation about not necessarily the rating part, but just to understand like everybody's notes. Is that, am I getting it in my head correctly?
Yeah, I mean, and again, not to keep going back to our use case, but a lot of people that we work with hire customer success roles. So for our given position, 3 people on my team, myself, Rob, and Kelly, we all went through and watched all the videos and we rated our instances. And then out of that, it aggregated the top 10, and Rob scheduled follow-up 10 interviews with those candidates. And so we were able to add notes, you're able to add stars, and some people are more detailed than not. Obviously, there's a little bit of that, and you want to make sure you're careful around that. But yeah, we also allow for ratings to live in the ATS as well too. We know some people want it all there, but also if you're using Wedge as a standalone, you can do it all right in there. So yes, very long-winded way of saying yes, you can.
Yeah, I know you're not doing this now and you may not even love it, but my mind goes, well, this is a fantastic place for AI. This is where you could take your notes, my notes, William's notes, and tell us where the differences are or where the similarities are and where we feel they would be good fits on the team.
Fair.
For sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, but that could be me trying to take the easy way out or the lazy way
I think
out.
it's no, because AI in one of its purest forms, or one of the benefits, it connects dots that we can't see.
Right,
For sure.
Right. So I think in that way, even if you did it metadata wise, right, and you looked at all of those notes,
Yeah,
and you looked at like all of those things to then see what's the discrepancy between one and the other, I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Again, getting back to your large language model and building it off of your own taxonomy.
The other thing too is, there is also a bit of a fact check around, are the notes that I'm taking supportive of the job description or not supportive of the job description? So like I could have called a candidate out for a certain piece, and and running a language model could come back and say, well, you just critiqued this candidate on something that's not relevant to the job description. That's not a good reason to eliminate them, right? And so again, you got to be careful of how far down that rabbit hole you go, but there's a lot there too, which we're actively exploring.
How does Wedge interact with job descriptions? Like, and why I'm asking that question is if they, what did you say, 80-something% create their own custom questions, is that based, maybe not now, but in the future, is that based on what the job description is? So they're not asking questions, and we're not standardizing questions for the candidates that are really not great questions as it relates to the job description.
Right now we don't do a ton of that, partly because, some companies would say, we just want to make sure the candidate does the video. We don't necessarily care that much about what they said. And I'm not saying that's a good use case, but that's where, like we have a virtual assistant, a company that hires a lot of virtual assistants to use us. And their one question is, tell us a joke. Not even a question, just a statement. Tell us a joke. And that's their interview. And mainly because as a virtual assistant, you have to have the ability to be able to be, charming, be able to be communicative, be able to engage with anybody. And that's just seeing how they respond to being on the spot like that is something that they have found is a very, very beneficial tool to successful candidates. So that doesn't necessarily indicate anything on the job description, if you will, but it's very effective for them. And that's, I'm not recommending that, but that's just why we've shied away a little bit from that.
Where do you find most of your customers love you the most?
Yeah.
From what benefiting tool or what industry or like?
I would just say about Wedge in general. What your average client, what customer, when they look at Wedge, what do they say? This is why we are using Wedge.
I believe 2 things, and then I want to give a really cool example. So I think we have the easiest to use platform in the market. If you guys say, let's get going, you can start today. And that's not a fake, that's real. We have clients who get started the day of. I don't think there's a lot of technology out there like that, especially in our space. We have the best candidate experience on the market, so that is a friendly user experience for the candidate. I think so many HR tech companies and VC dollars go towards making a beneficial tool for the business, but they forget about the candidate. At the whole point of why we're in this industry is the people business. And so I believe we have built the greatest candidate experience platform for video interviewing. One of the coolest examples was I got asked to speak at one of the YMCA CHRO conferences, and one of our clients who's a YMCA, she said, "Hey, would you mind if I talk for a few minutes on your behalf?" And I said, "Please, have all the time that you want."
No,
And
no.
I got way too many good bits, right? So one of the things that she shared was, like most HR teams, they're underwhelmed and understaffed, or they're overwhelmed and understaffed. And it took them 7 to 10 days to get back to candidates that applied for a job and to schedule the next step, just because they had too many candidates, not enough time. Well, if that candidate is applying for a lifeguard position, they've probably applied to 10 other roles and they've already moved on. Wedge allowed them an immediate touch point to get the candidate engaged in the process, to make the candidate feel like they're being valued in this whole step of the way, even given the under-resourced organization of the HR side of things. And that has been a use case that I think has drastically helped a lot of organizations. And again, the other piece too, and this is the most relevant, I think, in today's day and age. This wasn't always true, but candidate ghosting is at an all-time high, and that's not going to change. And as long as we have things like instant apply, you're going to run into scenarios where people are just not interested in any of the roles they applied for. And Wedge allows you to vet out those people very, very quickly and effectively. And so, all around, I gave you probably more than just 2 points. I think I gave you 4 points. But I think those are areas that our candidates love us, and why we've been able to weather the storms of HR tech, which is not always that easy. So
it's okay. Earlier you did 3/4 to 2/3, and it was seamless. No one noticed.
I'm not. I circled back. Come on.
You did. It was very nice. You're like 1/3 and then 3/4. My
and then 3/8, and we got there. Okay, guys.
Those two fractions don't go together.
8,000 of our clients out of our roster of 40 clients is fantastic.
Yeah. Of the 300 clients that I have, 12,000 of them vote yes to Wedge. Okay.
Fair enough. Take us through two things. One is mobile first or mobile responsive, and the other is advice that you give both candidates and the people reviewing these videos in terms of making just a great video.
Yeah. So Wedge, any browser, any device. We don't require a mobile app. Candidates hate downloading a mobile app. So we have taken the stance of we just want to be an internet browser first platform. With as long as you have an internet browser and a camera, you can record a Wedge. Any browser, any device, and that's incredibly important to us. I would say probably 70% of candidates complete the Wedge on mobile, probably 30% on desktop. There's not really a whole lot of data that suggests why. Like, there's no roles that are more likely than the other. It just kind of goes both ways.
Who really cares, right? They're getting it done. Yeah.
They're getting it done, right? And then the advice to candidates and companies. I think number one, for a company, go through the experience. So we have some companies that might ask 30 questions as part of the interview, and they've never gone through it themselves. And you go through that and you're like, oh, maybe we don't need that many, right? So I think for companies, simply like, and this is not just video interviewing. This is apply for a job you're posting, so you get to experience what you're putting people through and asking them to go through. Yeah, yes. If you can't do that, then you shouldn't be posting the job to begin with. So that's one. Candidate side, I think video today is still nerve-wracking. You're still looking at yourself. Nobody loves the way they look, blah, 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 blah. Number one, take a deep breath. And we always encourage retakes, whether you get retakes or no retakes. I think take a deep breath and speak very, very, emphasize more simply than sophisticated. And same thing with public speaking, right? The simpler you can be and just kind of more rawness of who you are as a person. Number one, if you're authentic and the person chooses not to hire you, that's a good thing because they didn't want the real you. And if you're authentic and they chose to hire you, they're hiring you for who you actually are. And that's going to make a much better connection for employment, for deeper relationships. And so, then there's simple tricks like have good lighting, make sure there's not kids screaming in the background. There's plenty of things like that. It's one of the reasons we allow practice questions, just so you can actually hear what you sound like and you know what it looks like. Because, on Zoom, you don't always know what the background looks like. You don't always know you got hair messed up or whatever it is. So we certainly encourage that. But whether it's mobile or not, that doesn't matter as much. It works great both ways. So.
Yeah. Well, so Matt, when you introduced Wedge and you told us what Wedge does, you said that in a very simple, matter-of-fact way, which is kind of like the advice you're giving here. But we speak to a lot of founders of companies, and they have a hell of a time explaining what they do, right? And they try to make it sound exotic and amazing. And you're just like, yeah, we interview. Flip your phone, interview, we're done.
Yeah.
Next
Stand it
call.
up. Go.
Yeah. And that's it. So I agree with what you're saying there, and I think it's an easy thing to understand what you guys are doing. Where William, I'm going to steal your question here, because you just are so amazing that it's rubbing off on me. So
hey, Pinocchio, keep it in your pants.
Or Kirk. Whereas I go, so you're given a demo, right? And so William always asks this question, and I love it. So where in the demo? How far along in a demo, or what part of the demo do you get to when if you get to this point, the prospect on the other end of the line is like, yeah, I get it, and that you've got them hooked.
So I want to touch point on the easy or the simplicity of me explaining, and then segue into this because I think it goes hand in hand. I'm pretty sure the speaker John Maxwell, somebody was like, well, "How are you so good at public speaking?" He's like, "Well, I've done it 12,000 times." So like by nature, you get pretty good at it. So for me, I have been at this quite a while, and I've repeated the same bit over and 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 over again. And you get to a point where you're like, number one, I feel super confident. Number two, I've eliminated, I'm not that smart. I'm pretty dumb actually, but I've been able to articulate it with the understanding that the person listening to me doesn't know what we do, and they don't really care. And my job is to make it compelling enough that they want to ask one more question. If I get somebody asking a question, I've got them. That's where I'm good. And then once it gets sophisticated, I pass it over to our CTO or smarter people on our team. So in the demo realm, one thing I've totally flipped the script on is the very first thing I do is I show them a wedge. I show them a completed wedge, a candidate who has gone through the product. And in the first 10 seconds, they're like, I get this now. Because for a while, again, pitching this product to either maybe unsophisticated tech buyers or people who don't know what asynchronous video interviewing is, it would take me 30 minutes and they still wouldn't get it. And so now I've shown them this is exactly what it is. This is the end result of you using our service. Now let me show you how we get there. And that to me has helped our close rate. It's helped just remove a lot of BS in the whole demoing process and quite frankly, a lot of confusion in discussions with folks. And so usually, in some point in the process, when somebody says, I like this about the product, I like that it's simple, I like that I can customize questions, I like that we can custom brand, I like that it integrates with our ATS. If I get any of those done, over with, sayonara, they're writing us a check. That's how we win. And again, we have gotten, I was batting probably 20% 2 years ago. We now probably bat 90% because also we're pitching to people that we know are going to be buyers, or we're pitching to people that we know. This is not me just spewing crap, getting anybody to buy our product and figuring out who the use case is. These are people who I know I can offer you value. And I'll be the first to say now, it wasn't the case 2 years ago. I will be the first to say, this is not going to work for you. I know for a fact, if you don't have any candidate volume, we're not a tool for you. If you're hiring CEOs or need an executive search firm, we're not the tool for you. If you have volume, candidate ghosting, need to reduce a funnel or need to reduce your time to fill, all of those use cases, I can help you in some way, shape, or form. And that's just, I think, drastically help us get a lot more simple in what we're pitching. And yeah, so you got me all fired up. It's like I drank too much caffeine.
What do you think what do you think the responsibility is to teach customers how to consume video interviewing? You know what I mean? Like, I could see them getting the questions, and then again, because it's collaboration, they're going to put their notes in, somebody else is going to put their notes in, and all that stuff. But I could see them kind of like, I didn't like her, I didn't like her background, or she spoke really fast, Who gives a shit? It's like these weird biases. Like, her cats were on her bed. I don't want to hire a person that's a cat person. Stuff like just stupid shit. But I can see people not understanding that they have those biases. So it's like,
You,
what type of responsibility do we have to teach them? Hey, here's the things to care about.
mm-hmm. I think you lay out expectations of, okay, what are you looking for in this candidate? I know the job description, but
Yeah,
when you see it and you know it, or you get most of it, what is that? Now, are you eliminating somebody on a video because of something other than that? If that's the
right.
case, you are implementing bias. Same thing with a phone screen, right? If
Sure.
I'm taking a phone screen and I have to do it at 8 o'clock at night and there's some subtle noise in the background, but I'm focused, I'm there. Should I get removed because I was busy? No, because I took the time to actually do it. Is busyness a job? Is lack of busyness a job requirement, a part of the rec? No. So don't eliminate somebody because it has nothing to do with the actual job or what you're trying to hire the person for. I think that reigns true for, looking at resumes. I think that remains true
Right.
for likableness, right? Via Zoom or in person, right? If you like the person, they're charming, you guys relate on a certain joke, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a good hire. Now, I'm only about as good as charming, and that's about all I've got anyway. So I hope people don't eliminate me if I ever look for a job. But with that being said, I think it's really hone in on what expectations do you have on candidates to be a rock star candidate for your organization, and those are the things that you are focusing on understanding about people in the process, whether it's video, phone screens, interviewing, live, resumes, any of that. Focus on that.
Yep. So, all right. So, final question, I think, on my end is we got to all the goodies. We got to all the good stuff. We got you fired up about the demos and all that. But we never heard your origin story. Not where you were born. We're talking Wedge. Give us the
Yeah.
origin story of Wedge.
I was born a poor black son.
and I got immigrated over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ann Arbor, Michigan. I started mowing a few lawns as a chubby neighbor kid. My first lawn that I mowed was a funeral home director. And every time somebody in the community died, he would call me at midnight and have me go mow the next day. So I had job security when people in my community died. So
100%.
as a 16-year-old, I read obituaries in the newspaper, and that's where my freak showness started to come out.
We just spoke with what was his name? With Lux. Lux. Yeah. We'll send you the link. He studied 2,000 obituaries and did a TED talk on it. It was pretty interesting.
So from studying obituaries, mowing lawns, business grew quite a bit. I kept the business going while I was in college. I went to college about 3 hours away, hired some people, hired some more people, business kept growing. And I got approached by a property management company, offered if I wanted to sell the business, and had a chance to do that, which was awesome. Definitely not rich or a big tech exit, but it was a cool, got my first exit under my belt by 21, which is awesome. And one of the things I started reflecting on was like, I hired pretty well. And I'd hired, I probably interviewed 50 people, probably hired 25 or 30 through the years. And I didn't care if somebody knew how to mow a lawn or weed whack or anything like that. I cared, can you be personable? Can I put you in front of my customers? If I could do that, I could teach you the skills needed. So and this was 6-7 years ago, in that time frame, one of the things I was thinking about was, we have all these resumes and you have all these in-person interviews, and there's this gap there. There's this, we look at paper, we put so much stock in who that person is as an individual. They show up for the first interview and like that, it's not a good fit or whatever that may be. And so again, like any good entrepreneur, you go from mowing lawns to HR tech, like a sociopath.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's how it works.
to me, exactly. To me, it was like, I don't come from the industry, don't care to come from the industry, but it's like, I think that there's a problem here that we can solve. And I think there's a user base that needs what we have to offer. And that's where it started. And it's kind of all she wrote from there.
I love it. My final question is two-pronged. One is, what questions do you wish prospects asked you? And two, what are the list of no's that you get? Like, what's the most common no? And even if they don't say no explicitly, they just don't move forward in the sales process.
Yeah. So I wish more prospect would ask us, what is an appropriate completion rate? So,
interesting. Okay.
of people that are applying, what is a standard realm of practice? So our global completion rate is about just under 50%. It's like 48 or 49%, meaning out of 10 candidates, 4.8 or 5 actually complete the video. So follow-up question, is it bad that you've lost some candidates? Well, if the completion rate was 10 or 20%, yeah, there's probably a process issue. If your completion rate is 30, 40, 50, 60, 70%, the ones falling off were actually not that interested in the job to begin with. And that's where that explanation goes a long way for people, where if they don't ask that question and they send out a bunch of invites and only half of them complete it, they're like, whoa, this is not good. Well, you're actually eliminating a lot of people that really weren't interested to begin with. Like some of that fall off is okay. The second part was, why do people say no, or why do they choose not to move forward?
Right.
So more often than not, the reason people choose not to go forward is it's harder to change than it is to change, right? There's this whole concept of adding anything new is daunting and challenging. HR folks in general are typically risk averse, or they have more incentive in their role to say no than to say yes. So adding anything new, no matter how expensive, no matter how cost effective, no matter how beneficial, anything new comes across as scary or daunting or whatever it is. 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, pre-COVID, the idea of video freaked everybody out. Now it's an adoption that helps people understand quite a bit. But it's interesting, our customer base, I don't really compete with anybody. Like very rarely am I going head to head with any of the other players in the space. It's a 0-1 game. It's somebody who's never used a tool like ours before, educating them to understand why the value add. So it's a 0-1 first time using our type of software. And that's where, is it a no? A lot of times no, but it's making sure we're doing the best we possibly can to walk through more as a consultative. Yes, that's what I was saying. More.
I got you.
More. Thank you. More that approach helps than buy it, try it, figure out how it works, and good luck. It's much more like, hey, we need to educate, and once we do, people get it pretty quickly.
Drops mic, walks off stage.
Yeah, Matt, done and done, baby. Done and done.
Appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on the show.
100%, 100%. If you guys are still watching or listening, please subscribe, share us, see us in public, say hello, and Matt's going to send you all a signed coffee mug. All right, we'll see y'all next time.